Professor Charles Okigbo, guest speaker from North Dakota University at the Value Frontier Second Quarterly Africa Analytics, focusing on analytics and the Nigerian media, discussed on analytic terms and how it is viable for the Nigerian media industry. He also gave steps on how it can be deployed effectively for the industry.
This is something I teach in the US, and therefore it's important for me to come and share this knowledge. When I left Nigeria, I was teaching communication research. In the last 3 years, we now call it communication analysis, because it's more than just research. Research is primarily using data to come up with results that we use to address questions. But analysis is much more than that. Analysis is more integrated. Analysis means asking questions even before you decide what data to collect. So I'm hoping that today I will make you nearly as enthusiastic as I am about this topic, because it's something that we cannot leave behind. It's something that we have to all embrace. It's something that can make you different from who you were yesterday, just because you were here today. It's something that can make your organization different from what it used to be, simply because of your new approach to evidence. What's the evidence? Where are the numbers? Where are the metrics? How do we know what we know? And what can we do about what we don't know? Using analytics. So analytics is something that is so fundamental that we all have to embrace it. And having embraced it, see how our lives will be different. In my view, it's a new name for an old game we have always been playing. It's research. Analytics is research. But it's a different kind of research. It's sophisticated research. But it doesn't mean you have to be a graduate to do it. It doesn't mean you have to be a statistician to do it. It doesn't mean you have to be a computer specialist to do analytics. But you must have brains, and you must be inquisitive. You must be willing to question. You shouldn't be complacent and accept whatever you are told. So analytics is research. But you could say it's research on steroids. It's research which is jumping up and down, because there are questions to ask all around us. There are questions, there are accepted answers that we should question again. It's not analytics if you're just giving us results of your research. That's academic research. But analytics is storytelling. What stories do we tell? Storytelling based on evidence. What's the evidence? It must be incontrovertible evidence. It must be evidence based on numbers. But not necessarily only numbers. Because analytics means, and I'll talk about this later on, it means triangulated approaches to research. Triangulation. Triangulation means there are numbers because there is quantification, but there are also descriptions and narratives because it's qualitative. We don't have any numbers. But we have people telling us what they felt, how they thought, what happened to them, and sometimes this can be more interesting than those numbers. So analytics is research. And by research, we usually mean strategic collection of data. Strategic collection of data. It's not any kind of data, but it's strategic because of this problem, because of the issues at hand. Strategic collection of data. For analysis, if you collect data and they're not analyzed, that's not analytics. Well, it's obvious that if it's analytics, it means there is analysis. So, collection of data for analysis so that we can come up with evidence. What's the evidence to support our positions? What's the evidence to make our story more interesting? What's the evidence to make the case we want to make? What's the evidence to support our point of view? There's nothing wrong with having opinions. The world would be very boring if we didn't have opinions. But the key thing is for you to base your opinions on evidence. Doesn't make any difference whether you are Igbo or Yoruba. Why? This is the evidence. Doesn't make any difference whether you are a Muslim or a Christian. Why? This is the evidence. There are good Muslims, there are bad Christians. So everything must be based on evidence. And that's what analytics teaches us. So analytics is telling stories with data and empirical evidence. The first step is for you to be so passionate about this topic that you just know my work will not be my work unless there is analytics involved. So whatever you do, it must be clear that you embrace analytics. Whether you are writing a brief, whether you are writing a story, whether you are thinking of TV or radio production, whatever you are planning to do in communication must be undergirded, must be guided, must be underladen with a clear statement of analytics. How are we going to use data to address this problem? So that's the first step. Secondly, you must be able to define your problem in such precise terms that it will be obvious that this problem is solvable with evidence. So you define your problem. What's the problem? Sometimes the problem is we want to create awareness. People don't know about our product. People don't know about this side of this phenomenon. People don't understand what Boko Haram is. People don't understand that the budget hasn't been approved. And this is May. How can that be? When the budget is supposed to guide our expenditures from January. So the second step is to understand the problem and be able to state this in a way that we can provide evidence, empirical as well as qualitative evidence. Having stated the problem, the third step will now be for you to define your goal. You must have a goal. If you don't have a goal, even though you have a problem, you wouldn't know how to go about it. So it's important for you to have a goal. What is our goal in trying to use analytics? Our goal is to find evidence. It's not necessarily to prove your opinion to the right. You should have an open mind that even though you know what you would like to find, you should be prepared to go with the data, whatever they show you. So you must have a goal. Our goal is to find answers to this question. Then you have to break this goal into specific objectives. Usually 2 or 3 or 4 objectives which radiate from this overarching goal. The goals are more specific. The objectives are more specific than the goal which is broader. Sometimes they say the best objectives are SMART because they are simple, they are simply stated. Whereas the goal is for us to make our children smart, the objective is now to make sure that this boy doesn't score less than 80 in the next maths test that is taking place next week. That's an objective, it's specific. Whereas the goal was broad. Then it's good for us to change these objectives into research questions. Formulate these objectives into research questions. Why? So we can test them and know whether in fact those research questions are answered in the affirmative or in the negative. The fifth step usually requires us to find out what other people have done about this area of research. In academic research, we call it a literature review. Find out what other researchers have found doing research in this area. What did they do? Where? How? With whom? And what did they find? The Bible says there is nothing new under the sun. Similarly, there is hardly any topic that hasn't been researched. And even though we are going to this with an open mind, we still want to know what other people had found. Because depending on what they found, we can change our questions. From the lit review, the sixth step is now methods. Notice I'm saying methods. You are familiar with method, but in my own case, S. Method with S. The S should be emphasized. Because as I hinted before, it's important for you to do more than a simple analysis. If it's analytics, then we have to do triangulation. Triangulation means we are using different research approaches to address this simple question. It's not enough to just use one approach. Triangulation means we want to collect data, number one, from different sources. The last step is what we call research communication. How do we share these results? It will be useless if we don't communicate these results. How do we share these results? And there are various ways of sharing. In conferences, in workshops, in publications. The fact that you are working for the private sector doesn't mean you cannot publish your results in an academic journal. And so, in conclusion, analytics is not completely new, but it's different from research because of all these things I have told you this morning. And so, you should go forth from today knowing that your life will be different if you embrace analytics. Thank you.